Okay, so I'm going to talk about kind of the topics that are going to be on there, how much is going to be on there, and then I will actually go through the test kind of and tell you, here's how many questions, here's what they're on, okay, that kind of thing, so that you can really target your preparation towards those types of questions, okay? First thing we went over in this unit was that we reviewed scalars and vectors from Science 10, okay? Now, incidentally, your test, the format of your test is that there are 21 multiple choice questions and 8, I think, written. I'll confirm that in just a minute. I'm getting it confused with my Science 10 test that I just finished. But I'll confirm that. But it does have a multiple choice and then a problem solving part. Okay, so the problem solving would be kind of like your quiz questions, okay, similar to those. Okay, and the multiple choice. In the multiple choice, there's little to no calculating. Okay, those are more checking your understanding, vocabulary, okay, things like that. All right. So scalars and vectors, that would be part of both sections of the test. There could certainly be, some questions, about is this a scalar quantity or is it a vector quantity? There could be some simple calculations, about displacement versus distance. Okay, or something along those lines in the multiple choice, but that would be the extent of it. In the written part, here's where you need to really know it. If a question asks you, let's say something like this, a car is skidding along an icy road. It starts at a velocity of 25 meters per second forwards, and after accelerating at -5 meters per second squared for 6 seconds, what is its final velocity? Are you looking for a vector quantity or a scalar quantity? What's velocity? Vector or scalar? Vector. So if you forget to put forwards on your answer, will you lose marks? You will. Okay, so that's kind of where in the written response you need to know, oh right, I'm solving for this. Because sometimes solving for a vector quantity is actually different solution-wise than solving for a scalar quantity. Okay, sometimes it's not, okay, and you just have to remember to put a vector on it. So that's where that part comes into play in the written part. Okay, we talked about those, okay, as our scalar and vector quantities. So our scalar quantities were time, distance, speed, energy, work. Our vector quantities, displacement, velocity, acceleration. Next unit, force, okay, also a vector quantity. And we reviewed the use of those two formulas, okay, V equals d over t and V equals d over t. Okay. Remembering that this formula can also be written like this. Because that's the vector one. Okay, now, as I said, the written response, is going to be testing problem solving. I'm not going to have a 5-mark question on V equals d over t. Okay, that's beyond, you guys are far beyond what that would be, okay, already. So, do you need to use V equals d over t? Yes, but not for its own sake, except maybe in a simple calculation in a multiple choice question, okay, but certainly not as a 5-mark problem in the written. Now, is V equals d over t part of projectile motion? So you got to use it there too, right? So it has its places, okay, but know that I'm not going to have a 5-mark question that says, here's the displacement, here's the time, calculate the velocity. Okay, you guys are past that. Okay, graphing. Big. There's graphing in the written response, there's graphing in the multiple choice. Okay. In the multiple choice, the graphing is about understanding, not calculation. Okay, so I might show you a graph and ask, what type of motion is this graph showing? A, B, C, or D? Okay, or something that were maybe a simple calculation, like what would the velocity of this object be? And you'd have the final position and the initial position and the time from the graph, something like that, something simple, okay, in the multiple choice. In the written, expect that I'm gonna ask you the same things I asked you in the lab reports for this unit. Okay? In the position versus time graphing lab, I asked you to calculate velocity from the position versus time graph. Okay? I also asked you to calculate, things like how far would it go after this amount of time that's not on the graph, and you had to use the equation for the line to calculate that. Those are the things you were asked to do in your labs, so they're the things that will be assessed, okay, on the exam. For velocity versus time graph, exactly what I asked you to do in the lab. That would be get the acceleration and calculate displacement from the velocity versus time graph. Okay? If those are the things I ask you to do in the lab, they're definitely important and they're definitely on the unit exam. Okay? All right, so if we're reviewing that, okay, so position versus time, velocity versus time, right? You're gonna get something like this probably on there, okay, where you got the equation for the line. If I give you the graph, okay, and I want you to use the equation for the line, I will give you the equation for the line. If I give you the equation for the line, I want you to use the equation for the line. Have I been specific enough about that? Okay? Don't go do something else. If I give you the equation for the line, I mean for you to use it. Okay? Now, if I'm looking at these two graphs, this one's the velocity versus time on the left, this is the position versus time on the right. Are they showing the same thing? They're not. Okay? The one on the right, the position versus time graph, is showing an object traveling at a constant velocity in a positive direction. The graph on the left is showing an object accelerating. What would the position versus time for that look like? Okay, upward curve. Those are the kind of things I might ask in the multiple choice. Those are understanding kind of questions. They don't require you to calculate anything, okay? But they tell me you understand what graphs mean. Okay, in the written response, as I said, you'll have these values, you'll have the equations, you'll be asked to calculate things like displacement, acceleration, velocity, displacement, okay, those kinds of things on there, and use y equals mx plus b to calculate and extrapolate values beyond the graph. Questions on the expectations for graphs? Okay. There's a significant amount of marks on the test, so make sure you go over those two labs for sure. Okay, accelerations. So there are two acceleration problems. Pretty sure it's two. I'll tell you for sure in a minute. So yeah, you got to do some acceleration problem solving. For its own sake, on just an acceleration problem, kind of like the example I gave you a minute ago for vectors and scalars, and as part of projectile motion. Okay, you got to use all those acceleration formulas when we solve projectile problems. So being able to identify what that acceleration formula to use and use it correctly, those are important skills for the unit. Okay. In the multiple choice, might I ask you what acceleration is? Okay. It was part of your lab, right? In your hypothesis, you had to give me a definition of acceleration, so expect that's something that's going to get tested. All right, vector addition. Yeah, that's on there. There's a vector addition problem. You know exactly what it's going to look like. Okay, I already told you. It'll have one line that goes along an axis and one that's angled. Okay, tail to head, x and y components, solve. And you've done lots of them. You guys are good at them, so that one should be one of the easier questions on the test for you. Okay. Could I also ask you some multiple choice questions about the fundamentals of vector addition?
So there won't be a question with two angled?
No, there won't. Okay, could I ask you in the multiple choice about the fundamentals of vector addition? Like that whole tail to head thing and stuff like that. Okay, that could definitely be a multiple choice type item. Okay, it doesn't require any calculation, it requires understanding. Okay, could there be a vote question? There's a vote question. How many types of boat questions are there? 2. Rowing across, going across. One of them's on there. But you gotta know both, because I'm not gonna tell you which one. Okay, and then projectile motion, problem solving. Okay, I already told you yesterday, one of each. There's one projected horizontally, there's one projected at an angle. They're the first 2 questions on the test. Okay. The projected horizontally one's 5 marks, the projected at an angle is 7, I think. And because in the projected at an angle one, you have to calculate both the horizontal distance traveled and the maximum height of the object. All right. For a couple little detail type things, okay? In regards to doing a multiple choice test, you'll have the little, you'll have the zip grade sheets. I'm sure you guys have all used those before. I think just about everybody uses those. So when you're filling in the multiple choice, pen or pencil? Pencil. Okay, use pencil. And the first time through, okay, just, just like that, just a little mark. Just in case you want to go back and change it later, because that's easy to erase, okay? What I don't want to see is even though I say I don't want to see this, I always see somebody do it, okay? They fill that sucker in good and dark, and then, oh crap, and it's in pen, and they're like, oh, nope, it's, and they fill that one in good and dark, oh, nope. You need to know how the zip grade gets marked. I hold my phone over the sheet, and my phone takes a picture and scans it and detects if any of these have been filled in. If the one that's filled in is the same one I have filled in on the key, it goes, that one is right. What does it say about this one? It says it's wrong, and it's right. Okay? There are not 3 correct answers. It does not understand this one. Okay? It just doesn't. It just sees 3 things filled in and goes, no, that ain't right. Okay? My key does not have 3 filled in on it. So, if you make a mistake, make sure that it is erased completely. Okay? So it must be done with pencil. Right? Because I'm not going over them manually. Okay? I just snap the picture of it, okay? And go on from there. Incidentally, it snaps a picture of it. Not that any of you would do this, but one person tried. Okay? After we went over the test, they changed all their answers so that they're like, Mr. Coderre, this got marked wrong. And then I just bring up on my phone the picture of the one that I marked and go, liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay? Because I have the original version on there, okay, when it's marked. So that won't work. There's a lot of snow here. I'm pretty old. I've seen that trick before. All right. The test itself. This you want to write down. Okay. Sorry, 17 multiple choice. Got confused with my chem test. Sorry, guys. 17 multiple choice questions. Okay, and as I said already, those multiple choice questions will test things like scalars and vectors, simple v equals d over t, final position minus initial position, okay, that kind of stuff. Couple of graphing questions, especially reading and interpreting a graph, not so much calculating from the graph. Okay. Yeah, there's actually what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the questions out of 17 are interpreting graphs in the multiple choice. Okay, so it's kind of big. All right, and there's a couple of vector things and a couple of understanding projectile motion questions. Okay, like I say, no like challenging math in the multiple choice, just understanding stuff. Okay, and in the written response, there are, yes, seven written response questions. Okay, those 7.
Desk? We're
Yes.
supposed to get a desk from you, no?
Nope, not for me.
Okay.
So in the written response, okay, you've got a projected horizontally projectile question. A projected at an angle question where you calculate horizontal distance and maximum height. A boat question. An acceleration problem. A velocity versus time graph. The velocity versus time graph has a part A, B, and C. The vector addition problem. And a position versus time graph with an A, B, C, D. Okay, all of the formulas are on the front page of the test. Okay, so you may not have your formula sheet because I don't know how much you've written on it and I don't have the time to check. Okay, so the formulas you will need are on the front of the test. Okay. In terms of length, I always measure the difficulty of the test by how long it takes me to make the key. It took me 18 minutes to make the key. I figure it should take you between 3 and 4 times as long to do the test as it takes me, which still easily fits inside of an 80-minute period, okay, or an 85-minute period, right? So it is definitely on the short side because it's actually, you have actually more than 4 times as long as it took me to do it, okay? If a test, how long it takes me to make the test can only be multiplied by 3 to fit inside a class period, that's a harder test. Okay? This one, you can multiply how long it takes me by 4 and still fits in an 85-minute class. I think that actually puts it a little bit on the easier side. Okay? And that is because I did end up at the very last minute taking one question off of it. I felt it was just a little bit too long and one of the questions was repetitive, so I took it off. And so you only have 1 acceleration problem, not 2. All right, questions from you guys? Anything you want to ask?
How many marks are in the second portion?
How many marks? So, Multiple choice out of 17, written out of 48. Total 65. Three of those marks are on graphing of the 65. So if I was going to spend time studying one thing, I would make it graphing. Okay? Just if I'm, hedging my bets that direction. And then I would say projectiles after that would be kind of the next biggest thing, because if you're studying projectiles, you're inadvertently studying vectors and acceleration at the same time. If you have accommodations for the test through learning supports, okay, or anything like that, those will be in place for you. Okay, so if you normally write in learning support or anything like that, you can go directly there, okay, on exam day, because they will already have your test. Any other accommodations that you are entitled to, I will provide, okay, and have ready for you. If that doesn't apply to you, you just come here and write the test. Okay. Also, for cell phones. Okay, there will be a bin on my red cart, and you'll come up and turn your phone off, completely powered down. Okay, once it's in the box, I will hand you your test. Okay, and then you can start writing. In the interest of making sure you have enough time, okay, you guys can start your test, let's say 10 minutes early. And I will let you write 10 minutes into nighttime. That will give you an extra 20 minutes to write the test beyond the 85 minutes you already have. Okay? And then I will let my other class, my period 4 class, start 10 minutes early in nighttime and write 10 minutes past the end of the day. Okay? So you can take advantage of that if you want to. Okay? You don't have to. Right? For the test, make sure you have your calculator, okay, and pencils, plural, okay, just in case. And that is all you need to bring, because like I said, the formulas are on the front page. Okay. All right, any other questions or things you guys would like me to go over? Okay, well, you have the review package. Okay, I'll put it up on the board, but you have that. You've got some time here. Make good use of it. Okay, so let's say I give you a position versus time graph that looks like this. Here's some things I might ask from that graph. What's the velocity of this object?
1.53
1.53
meters per second.
meters per second. Positive, forward, something, yeah. Okay, that I would ask that. Okay, I could also possibly ask, what would the position of the object be after 1 minute? Okay, how would I go about getting that?
You'd replace the x with 60 seconds.
Exactly, okay. Y is on the x, or position is the y-axis. So if I'm looking for position, I'm solving for a y value. I told you 1 minute, so you'd replace x with 60 seconds and solve for y. Okay. Similarly, I could ask you how long it might take to reach a position of 100 meters. Okay. In which case you would manipulate for x, plug in 100 meters for y, and solve. Okay. Exactly the same things you were asked to do in your lab. Now, I could also give you an irregular graph. Okay, if you're given a graph like this and you have the equation, you're definitely using the equation. But if I was to give you, let's say, a graph that looked like this instead, you wouldn't get an equation for that graph, okay, because it doesn't have one. It does a bunch of different things, right? A question like that would be more like, what is the overall displacement of this object? Okay, in which case you would have to do a calculation like this. Final position minus initial position. Well, that would be 10 minus 20, okay, so that would be negative 10 meters, or if maybe I would have north on there and you'd say 10 meters south, something like that. Okay?
So it's gonna sound really dumb, but I still don't understand significant digits and like when you have to do to the power. Like,
Okay. So with significant digit, oh, you mean scientific notation then, not science.
that and the significant digits.
Okay, so the rule with significant digits is look at your numbers that you get in a question. Okay, so let's say we're looking at this question here. All right, this number has how many significant digits?
2,
This one has?
1.
Okay. So my final answer can only have how many significant digits? It's always the least. Whatever your least accurate number is, that's the number your answer has. Okay, now with the scientific notation, so if I finish this question here and, do I have an answer on there? I don't. Let's just say that it came out to 275, okay, meters per second. Okay, if I only have one significant digit, I can only keep this number. Okay, the next number back is a 7. Does that round this number up or down? Up. Okay, so 3, and I'm going to move the decimal from here to here. That's 2 spots, right? I put it in scientific notation. Well, sort of, to one significant digit, right? 3 times 10 to the 2.
Because the last one moved 2 spots.
2 spots. So however many you move the decimal, yeah.
So if it moved 3 spots, it'd be 10.
10 to the 3. Yeah. Okay, now that's for if you're moving it because the number's really big. If you're moving it because the number's really small, it'd be 10 to the minus whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay? One other thing in regards to significant digits. Okay? If you use a value from the formula sheet, incidentally, you get a formula sheet on the front page of the test. You cannot use yours. Okay? Any values from the formula sheet are considered absolute. Okay, so 9.81, that's absolute, does not affect your significant digits. Okay, anything that comes off the formula sheet is considered an absolute, and it does not affect your significant digits. Only the measured values in the question would count. I don't think that's even going to come up until unit 3, but just putting it out there. Okay. Okay, sorry, back to the graphing question. So yeah, I could ask you what's the overall displacement. I could ask you what's the overall velocity, in which case you'd do this and then divide by time, that kind of thing. Exactly the stuff we did in class. We had a couple quizzes where we had questions like that. Okay? All right? What else? Okay, if I want average velocity, it's total displacement divided by total time, right? Okay, so on this graph, my total displacement is this number right here that I already calculated. My final position is 10, my initial position is 20, so my overall displacement is negative 10 meters, and that takes 30 seconds. Okay, so my overall velocity would be negative 0.33 meters per second. Yeah? So just using b equals d over t. You can't use slope for that one because there isn't one. Yeah?
When would you use like the area under the graph?
Okay, so on a velocity versus time graph, to calculate displacement, but I don't want you to memorize that. Okay? If you're memorizing that, you're not learning how to analyze a graph. Okay? Yes, that's going to work. Okay? But remember, when we talked about that on a velocity versus time graph like this, okay, we said if I have the equation, what does the equation give me? Well, the equation tells me how quickly velocity is changing as a function of time by telling me the slope. Well, then this is the acceleration here. Okay? This is my y-intercept, and what's on my y-axis is velocity. So my y-intercept is the velocity at time 0. In other words, my initial velocity. Okay, if I have acceleration and initial velocity, and I know how long this thing runs for, I also have the time, and I can plug into a formula and calculate my total displacement. Right?
Like, I mean, like the area like under the graph for the last one.
That wouldn't calculate anything, it's position time graph.
It wouldn't.
No. Okay, if I calculate the area, see, and that's why there's the danger of memorizing, right? The area under this line, I'd be multiplying meters by seconds. What are meter seconds? I have no idea what a meter second is, but it's not displacement, right? So the area underneath the line on a position time graph doesn't calculate anything of value. Yeah, that's why I don't like people to memorize it. I want people to analyze and arrive, okay? When we memorize, there's too much danger of crossing them over with the wrong graph. Yeah. Okay, so you could get a velocity versus time graph like this. On there, I might ask, you know, like, okay, what's the acceleration? And you go through the same process I just explained. This is a graph showing the change in velocity over time. That means the rate of slope is the acceleration. Okay, you know, I could ask you, what's the velocity after 45 seconds? You do a y equals mx plus b calculation. Okay, I could ask you for the total displacement. Okay, which there's a number of ways to get it. Right, that kind of stuff. Exactly the same things you were asked to do on your lab report. Okay. All right, what else?
Would there ever be a question where the point wasn't exactly on the line, so we have to guess?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I want you to, if I give you the equation, the points are irrelevant. Okay, it's all about the line, because the equation only deals with the line, not the points.
Could you show us another, tail to head equation?
Thought I had a vector one on here. I guess I didn't. Dang it. Thought I had one. Okay. There's a lot of questions on here. Boy, one of my classes asked a lot of questions. A lot of them. Oh, that's one right there. Okay, so for a question like this, I'm just going to erase that and start over. Okay, so could very easily get a question like that on your unit exam. Okay, so we would draw this vector here, 25 meters south, and then our other one is 30 degrees east of north, so I would draw a line that's north. I would go 30 degrees east of that for 16 meters. Maybe should have been a little bit longer. 30 degrees, x, y, right? My resultant would go there, and would have its triangle. That would be my overall displacement. Since red x is the opposite side of that triangle, it would be the sine of 30 times 16, which is 8.0 meters east. Okay, the y component would be the cos of 30 times 16. And 13.856. meters north, and then obviously from my black vector there, x is 0 and y is 25 meters south. Okay, so then I just add my x's and y's together, right? So blue x is 8 meters east, because it's the only time we went east or west. Okay, blue y is going to be 25 minus 13.856. Sorry, I know I'm going fast, but I want to make sure I get through it before some other people have a chance to ask here. Okay, so 11.144 meters, and that'll be south. Okay, now I've got my resultants triangle. So D would be Pythagorean theorem, 8 squared plus 11.1 squared, okay, whatever that comes out to, and theta would be 10 to the minus 1 of the opposite side, 11.1 divided by the adjacent side, 8, that'd give you your vector. Okay. The one on your test isn't any harder than that.
When we're like listing our x and y components,
Mm-hmm.
when we get marks taken off, if say it's like cell, so it's like negative,
Mm-hmm.
if we put negative beside the number to like help remind, would that marks taken off, or is that okay?
No, that's fine. You won't lose any marks for that. Just make sure your final answer has the right vectors on it. That's what I'm concerned with. Yeah, whatever makes more sense for you in the method is what's best. Okay, what else, guys? Marco, was that good enough? Like, I know I went kind of fast there.
That's great, thanks.
On the end of that question, how would you figure out how to say like east of north?
How do I determine whether it's east of north or south of east? Okay, so in this case, this is the angle arc that I drew. Okay, the main compass direction that it's touching points east. So whatever this angle is, it's of east because it's measured from east. Okay, and the direction it goes is south of east. Yeah, so whatever compass direction, main axis or whatever your arc touches, that's the second part of your direction. It's of that. And then whatever direction you went from there is the first one, south of east. Yeah. And guys, I see this happen sometimes as well. Make sure that you are finding the angle that points from the starting point to the ending point. I still am having people calculate the angle that points from end to start. That's not what the trip is about. The trip is about here to here, not the other way. Okay? So if you're ever confused about that, what I always tell people is, if you don't know which angle to find, circle your starting point, and wherever that circle goes through your resultants triangle is the angle you're looking for. Okay? It draws the arc for you of the angle you need to find. Okay? Okay? Anything else? Okay, so I'll put the recording that was made today, okay, up along with, well, for today's lesson, but it's the review. There's a recording, I think I posted a recording of an old one from a previous semester in there yesterday. So, yeah, both. Okay. Maybe you get lucky and it was a semester where they asked all those questions. That was probably not a Friday class, they probably had more time. I will get those vector assignments marked and back to you for Wednesday when you come back. Okay, I will put in the marks as soon as I have them marked, but it may not be Saturday. Okay, and that's not a work day. So, but I will get them marked as quickly as I can. Okay, you will get them back done next school day, which is Wednesday. Okay, guys, shouldn't be packing up. There's like 12 minutes left in the class still. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, you have your kinematics unit exam review package, which is the last page in your digital workbook for this unit. Okay, or I posted it in Google Classroom, which is where I got that one from. Okay, you could be working on those. Those are some good questions to work on. Okay. When it comes back. Oh, play, no, go, yes, absolutely.
Aside from that, some of your draws, okay? You're not doing anything with the ghost?
Okay.
Could be shorter. I think I got like 35. Kind of debating. So, I know you could solve that.
is for this unit, so this is right here. Okay, right, so kinematics exam review, that's what's on the board right now, and then there's other things here as well. And the answers, they're not in here, but they're in the file that I posted. Okay. They actually are. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I think I got like, I'm guessing, 7. It's only a quiz. Oh, after today's was only. I think, are you in that? Who's your teacher?
This semester. My friend, she hated it. I mean, it's now I know what to do now. It's really easy. I literally damn. I could never.
There.
I had an 89.5 average, and I got high statistics.
That's the point.
God, wait, let me check mine again, because I did 89. Yeah, it was, yeah. High statistics. High statistics. 11.9. Yeah. I'm not even 1%, but yeah, I was at the high distinction. Yeah.
Not without parent permission. Okay, I'll just feed that.
I don't think so. Yeah, the only thing is that you're gonna bring me down, and I know it. As long as I can keep my grades in math and like math, you need to make sure that I'm doing Chem 30 next semester. Yeah. I want to swap to Mr. Projectile once I like Mr. Bash's teaching I have a last year where I kept funny. I like it's more I don't know if they have the same.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I had a 90.
Before our final blessing,
Listen up,
we
guys.
regrettably have to share that there has recently been some vandalism in the school, which has promoted hate. And this is something that will not be tolerated in the school. And if you have any information regarding this vandalism, please come forward to myself or Mrs. Atkinson or Mrs. Baxter before we take this information to the RCMP. Again, if you have any information regarding this, please let us know. Now we ask that you please rise and remove your hats for our closing blessing and dismissal. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and grant you peace. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Before we go, wishing happy birthdays to
You too. Have a good Thanksgiving, guys.
the following people: Alberta Paloma and Joanna Shapansky. Have a great birthday and have a great long weekend, everyone. See you on Wednesday.
That is not good answer.